Welcome back, everybody. Sorry about the hiccup. We are back live here on the YouTube channel. Xavier Robinson was selected by the Miami Dolphins. And as predicted, Quinon Mitchell goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Erickson, we did some simple math about 15 minutes ago, and I said, hey, guess what? The Eagles are going to get Quinon Mitchell, aren't they? And it looks like they indeed did. So once again, Howie Roseman, the smartest guy in the room, and at 22, it looks like Quinon Mitchell is now officially an Eagle. And Erickson, that was certainly a need for this Philadelphia Eagles defense in the worst way.
Yeah, I mean, Howie. So the thing that works the best about Howie, he looks even smarter now because he was talking about rumors of, oh, we're going to trade up for this guy, and then they don't even have to trade up for him. Like they just get him anyway. So Howie just continues to have these victory laps based on now he's going to get A's from everybody because they should have traded up to get Mitchell. He falls into their laps. I mean, it's exactly what they need. You know, Bradbury, Darius Slay, they're not getting any younger. They struggled in the secondary last year. That was their biggest weakness on the defense. Their defensive line is stacked. And look, the Eagles, they ended last season on a really bad note. Offense was a mess. Defense was a mess. But I think they could rebound in a big way. The NFC is much weaker than the AFC. So after missteps last year, especially in the second half, I think the Eagles could get back up into the playoffs and potentially back to the Super Bowl.
Thor, you and I did a betting pro show. We talked about him maybe being the first potential defensive player off the board. Well, he wasn't the first one. He was the first corner being selected off the board, so that's a good thing. Jair Alexander has been a comp that's been thrown around for him. A few other comps out there certainly are intriguing. You had a comp of Jonathan Joseph, but let's talk about Quinon Mitchell and his role now with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, they just submitted the card and they announced the pick, and then they showed the obligatory yearly shot that they do after the Eagles make their first pick, where everyone's standing around Howie in the war room and they're all doing the clapping. The people at home, they think that they're celebrating the pick or they're congratulating themselves. They're not. They're thanking the rest of the NFL for another gift that they sent down the board to the Eagles. You got to stop letting Howie do this every single year. It's getting ridiculous. The fact that you can get Quinon Mitchell here, it's fluky, and you don't want to call it lucky because Howie does this every single year. It's a part and parcel of the strategy. You create your own luck. And that guy does it every single draft process. Like I said, not being myopic with their picks, but just keeping the eyes wide open on the board and just anything that falls down, we're taking that gift. This one happens to be at a position of need, which makes it a little bit more ridiculous still.
All right. Coming up next now is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who made that swap with your Minnesota Vikings. So, Thor, what do you think they traded back, and what do you think is there for them that they're going to take now that they're at 23?
Might be the defensive backfield. We might get a mini run here. We'll have this. Absolutely could be. Yeah, I mean, or Terrion Arnold is in play as well. Either of those couple guys. The Jaguars may have sat there at the pick that was 17, their original slot, and been like, well, the NFL's not taking the defensive back. It's clearly our biggest position in need. Why don't we just take... Like the Vikings gave him a decent offer. You know, you look at that against the trade chart to go up there. It's like, why don't we just take that, move down 6 spots? There may still be multiple of those top 3 cornerbacks on the board. That's indeed what happens. Only one of them goes off the board in between. Wow. Okay.
They went wide receiver. Brian Thomas instead is the selection. So
wow.
Thor, let's pivot off the defense. Let's go to the offense instead. Calvin Ridley's gone. That experiment did not work out, but Brian Thomas from LSU, the wide receiver, is now officially a Jacksonville Jaguar. Now, where did you have Brian Thomas in your wide receiver ranks here going into this draft?
I had him wide receiver 5 and right around here. So I'm not going to argue with this one at all. The reason that I thought that they were going to lead with the, on the other side of the ball, defensive backfield was because this wide receiver class is so stacked and deep through day 2, where even into the middle of the 3rd round, I believe you can pluck someone and they can step into your starting lineup immediately. So I thought that Jacksonville might defer to that other need of a position where it drops off quicker. They obviously don't, I don't know if they love Thomas's game that much, but if they did, why would they have traded down before and risked it? Or what's going on if they don't like Arnold and DeGene maybe as much as some other people? That I'm not sure about. But to Brian Thomas's game, very interesting player. People will point out that this kid was a one-year wonder that last year broke out, and that his usage was isolated mostly to downtown looks. That stuff is all true, but you have to give this to Brian Thomas. When he went to LSU, he was one of the best wide receiver recruits in all of America. And he pushed through a wide receiver room that was full of future NFL players there when he got there. He started 8 games as a true freshman. Now, did he accrue an enormous amount of stats? No, it was like around 350 yards. But he had come in with neighbors. Back then, they had Trey Palmer, they had Keyshawn Butte, they had Jerry Jenkins. I'm missing a name or two. It's off memory, but he was able to push through there, start immediately. It was the same thing as a sophomore, but once again, he was in that sort of a tertiary role with the offense. But what you saw initially is the thing that the sort of hidden value that an offense gets from having Brian Thomas, which is the defense has to have a safety high on his side of the field because he can steal your lunch money when you don't. That's what we saw this past season as well. And it became a cool thing with the spacing as far as Jaden Daniels' scrambling ability, but then also his ability to hit Thomas downtown. At minimum, Brian Thomas, assuming the medicals are okay, obviously that's what Jacksonville has told us that they feel by taking him here. Minimum, you get a wide receiver 2, pop the top guy in the NFL. Defense has to respect his downtown ability, and he will kill you downfield. If it's one-on-one, that's what he does. The rest of it, we just didn't get to see it because he wasn't used that way in college. We didn't get to see him doing the east-west stuff. We didn't get to see him doing the in-breaking routes and the different route running machinations. But we know that guy can hit dingers. If you can teach him the rest of the route tree and everything like that, maybe you have wide receiver 1 upside. Certainly he has the athleticism, but at bare minimum, you just got yourself a really, really, really good wide receiver 2 that will win downfield whenever the defense leaves him one-on-one.
Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Gabe Davis, now Brian Thomas. So Erickson, Brian Thomas Jr. is now officially a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Here's an interesting question I'm going to pose to you. Is Brian Thomas potentially more useful in 2024 with Trevor Lawrence, or is his teammate Malik Neighbors with Daniel Jones, with nothing else really around him, the more coveted potential wide receiver in redraft leagues in 24?
I think it's Malik Neighbors. I don't think it's
Okay.
particularly close. Look, I don't think Thomas was the number 2 receiver on his LSU offense, and he's super explosive, can be a deep threat, way better than Gabe Davis. But it's going to be Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram that are going to still see the majority of those underneath targets for Trevor Lawrence. So Thomas going to be a spike week player. He scored a lot of touchdowns at LSU. He's going to probably score a decent amount of touchdowns. All the touchdowns that Calvin Ridley dropped last year, Brian Thomas is going to probably catch those. So this is really good for Trevor Lawrence's fantasy stock, I think, getting him another dynamic weapon. But I mean, Malik Neighbors, I think, is just going to, he's going to flirt with 150, 160 targets and then layering in the yards after the catch ability he has. I just think that's going to be too hard for Brian Thomas to keep up with, given that he's probably going to be 3rd at best in total targets on the Jaguars offense.
All right, coming up next, we've got the Dallas Cowboys on the clock. They have 2 minutes to make their pick. Thor, any ideas of which route the Cowboys might go?
With this pick here in the first, on day 2, let me start with that with the Cowboys. I'm pretty confident that the Cowboys will be taking a running back tomorrow. Might be waiting until the 3rd round, though. We'll have to see on that. But with this pick setting it up, I would say probably offensive line, interior offensive line. You could go infrastructure on the other side of the line of scrimmage as well with the defensive tackle. But I would think it would be one of those two. Then tomorrow you fill that hole, maybe even lead the dance by taking the first running back off the board. But that's what I would expect for Dallas right now. Jordan Morgan would be a good pick. Grahm Barton would be a really good pick. We just talked about him. A couple ideas for Dallas.
All right. Erickson, any thoughts here potentially what the Dallas Cowboys may end up doing here with their next pick?
Well, Jerry Jones sees 2 Texas wide receivers still on the board. So I wouldn't rule that out. I know they showed a lot of interest in Tyler Guyton, tackle from Oklahoma, so he can make some sense here. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of different ways that they could go. I mean, the fantasy person in me wants to see, let's bring another Longhorn to Dallas. Let's make it happen. Xavier Worthy, I think, would be a nice compliment to this offense with Dak Prescott. I mean, if they're all in, they got to do something because, if they're all in, it's got to mean something. But ultimately, they're going to go with an offensive lineman probably, and that's going to be their definition of all in.
Well, 35 seconds left. Thor, you think Jerry Jones has the discipline here to do what he should do, or does he get the temptation of doing the flashy thing, which is maybe going on the offensive side with a receiver, maybe a Worthy?
I wonder if this is getting bled out to the end because they are on a telephone call right now. Is what you always wonder when it gets down here.
Yep, there's
And
a trade, it looks
yeah,
like.
there it is. Yeah. Let's
So
see
it
what
looks like the Detroit Lions are moving up here to this section here. So the Detroit Lions look like they're moving up to 24. So things
Okay,
are hot
so
and heavy right now.
Lions move up 5 slots. This will be interesting to see who the Lions were targeting here, right? Like, who is it that the cornerback?
Cornerback to
Perhaps
me is the one. Cooper
is
DeJean to me is the guy that this is the only one that I can understand moving up from it. It
yeah,
feels like a very Dan Campbell thing to do.
or Terrion, right? Like we still have
Or
the
Terrion.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, so either one, but I agree with you when you think about Dan Campbell, you think about and the things that they prioritize. I'll remind you guys, last year they took an Iowa Hawkeye defender in the first round that stunned everybody in Jack Campbell. Him reuniting with Cooper would be really cool right
It
now.
is Terrion Arnold, by the
Oh,
way,
is it
just to
Arnold?
get the
Okay.
pick in.
The
Arnold is
symmetry
the
would have
pick
been
right
cool,
now.
but yeah.
Symmetry would have been cool, but alas, it is the safety Terrion Arnold. So walk us through the pick here.
Yeah, and even better than symmetry is destroying the value proposition. That's what they just did. Brad Holmes, who last year was at, we mauled him after Thursday for the value stuff, like just with the positions that he picked, right, with Gibbs and Campbell. This one, he is going to leave tonight getting all the flowers because he just stopped Terrion Arnold's fall. Terrion Arnold was CB1 on a lot of boards. He was CB2 on mine. I had him as the 16th overall player in the class. I was relatively, I think probably in consensus, he was probably a spot or two above that, or maybe even 3. So, I mean, getting him here at 24, it's not the same thing as the Howie Roseman thing, but it's you sense that opportunity and you go up and you strike. So you have to give Brad Holmes credit here, and a position that the Lions at this point, because Brad Holmes have been so good at this the past couple of years, but back when he started, they had holes everywhere. So you could just throw a dart and hit a position where a guy could come in and start immediately. Now they have precious few holes. This was one of them. That kid's going to go in there right away and contribute.
The swap here, just so everybody knows, is a third rounder. That's what the Lions gave up basically to move up a few picks here, and the 7th round goes back the other direction there to the Lions from the Cowboys. So Cowboys acquiring some more draft capital, moving back a few spots. Obviously, that has implications too. So Thor, what does that move back mean for the Cowboys? What do you think they're going to look at now that they've moved back a few slots?
I think whether it's the bucket of those couple interior offensive linemen that I was talking about, or whether Jerry Jones is fetishizing some more flash, but whichever one it is, you have multiple options in both those buckets. And so the opportunity to get some equity and drop down 5 spots, I think that's why they did it, because they had a dearth of options at those ones, and qualitatively there was no chance it was going to drop off a shelf.
All right, we are going to wait for the official word of this pick, but it does seem like it is going to be Arnold right now. So that is a good move here for the Detroit Lions, a team that certainly made a lot of noise last year. Now in 2024, they're going to be a team that is playing with expectations. It's always different to be the hunted as opposed to the hunter. So we'll see if Dan Campbell's lovable crew can withstand that sort of pressure, because it is going to be a very different pressure, that's for sure. In your opinion, Andrew, before we let you go for the evening and switch back for Derek Brown to come back and take his post, do you think the Detroit Lions are up for that task of being ready to be at the top of the mountain to see if they can push off all the guys trying to push them back down to the bottom?
I think so. I mean, they've consistently, as coming from a betting perspective, they've consistently been a team that's performed well against the spread, one of the best teams against the spread over the last 3 years since Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes took over. So they're constantly exceeding expectations. They made it really far in the playoffs last season. They retained Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator, which I think was a massive move. And they have their linchpin pieces. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Aiden Hutchinson. They're adding another guy that they needed, Terrion Arnold. So they're going all in because they know that in the NFC, maybe Jared Goff's not the best quarterback, but you don't need to have the best quarterback in the NFC. Like, you just got to get to the Chiefs. You just got to get to the Chiefs, and you got to hope that you can at least win one game. So I think the Lions are in a good position. NFC North, I like what they're doing.
All right, remember everybody, the stream today is brought to you by bettingpros.com. If you haven't already, download the Betting Pros app. What are you waiting for? Download that bad boy. Start betting smarter, not harder. Let us and the tools help you become an expert in the world of sports wagering. We've been using these tools all throughout the NFL draft season. We've been using them during the NFL season. We want you to use them also. We use them. That's why you should be using them too. Get the best lines at all the best spots and with the best insights as well. Download the Betting Pros app today. Start tracking your bets. Start finally learning how to turn those wagers into real investments. And that's what we're trying to do here. So track all your picks in one spot with Betting Pros. Again, the app is available right now wherever you get your apps. And Derek Brown is back, or also known as the groom at a swamp wedding. So Derek Brown, welcome back here. I could do this all night. Every time you come on, I'd love to have a little mashup of these, all the things that I've introduced Derek Brown as tonight. Maybe we can get Tyler and the team on that potentially. But what's your favorite, Mr. Peanut or the groom of the swamp wedding, or
Mr. Peanut,
or Abraham Lincoln?
The Mr. Peanut one got me, and we just the look behind the curtain here. I got up to go get a snack real fast. We were in between on a break and stuff, and my kids go, "Oh, you really do look like Mr. Peanut," because they were watching the show. I was like, "Oh, great! Don't give Joe any flowers for this. He doesn't need it." Okay.
Tell them Uncle Joe says hello. Thor. Let's continue to look ahead here because the next team on the clock now is going to be the Green Bay Packers, as Terrion Arnold officially now off the board, Alabama's own corner. So he is going to go to the Detroit Lions. So next up is the Green Bay Packers. This was a team that was looking for defensive backfield help. So Arnold gone, Quinon Mitchell gone. Where do they go?
I see what's coming here, and I don't like it.
I don't know what was Gab. I thought you were skipping for a second.
He's not going to like it because he's afraid Cooper is going to the Green Bay Packers.
That's exactly right. I was on Green Bay radio like a month and a half ago, and they were like, "It's getting pretty obnoxious how often people in mock drafts put Cooper DeJean here," but obviously it makes sense. It's like it's going to happen, and I'm going to get upset because Cooper is one of my favorite college players of all time. For people out there that don't know this, I went to grad school at Iowa. I love the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he was as good as it gets as far as an entertaining college player, especially on defense and the special teams utility. Oh, here it comes. Pick someone else, Green Bay, and obviously I'm a Vikings fan as well. So it's like I don't want them to take Cooper because it's like giving. It's like your son now is the enemy.
Well, don't worry, because they didn't. They took Jordan Morgan, it looks like, at 25.
Okay. Oh, yeah, they did there. And Jordan Morgan is not a bad pick. If I was him, I would have gone Cooper, and I'm happy right now, obviously. But
do you think people are mad about that? Like, I don't know what the live reaction from Pat Fitzmaurice is, but you had Cooper DeJean at the 19th player overall, the third corner. Where did you have Jordan Morgan going?
I had him on my board. I had Jordan Morgan 29th overall,
and
we're
not too far different.
And we're 25th. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad value proposition, especially when, like we were talking about before, all those offensive line. This is why the whole thing got skewed. You had the two teams that made the ridiculous decisions with quarterbacks, and then you had it was like a Hoover vacuum remember in Spaceballs where they have the big vacuum and then they pull the oxygen out of the atmosphere?
Megamade.
That was the teams with the offensive linemen that with Megamade. They were pulling the offensive linemen up the board. So all of a sudden it was like, what kind of reality are we living in? Princess Vespa couldn't breathe anymore. And because of that, now here the Packers at this spot, you don't have many first round offensive lineman quality guys that are still here. It'll be interesting to see if the Packers see him as a tackle. I ended up ranking him as a guard. He was a fabulous collegiate tackle at Arizona, an Arizona team that got real good last year and is going to be dangerous next year as well. But the thing, we talked about arm length before, Jordan Morgan categorically lacks it. He's a really good athlete. He has good technique, but because of that lack of length, that's where it comes into question because the defender across from him is always going to get his hands on him first at the NFL level. Is he good enough where he would be able to overcome that? Like having basically allowing the guy in the 40-yard dash to start 3 yards ahead of him every time. Can you still beat the guy in the race every single time? I think I would just put him at guard because he'd be a fabulous guard. I think I comped him to Lael Collins. You guys remember him coming out of LSU? If it hadn't been for the weird thing that he was not involved in, he would have been a first-round pick that year. But it was the same thing at the collegiate tackle. Will he be a guard? Will he be a tackle at the next level? But with Morgan, I think I would kick him inside. But either way, he's a good player.
Bro, what do you think about this selection here, going on the offensive guard side here? It certainly makes sense. Like, Jordan Love played extremely well down the stretch for the Packers last year. The Packers made noise in the playoffs. Honestly, they had San Francisco on the ropes. They should have won that football game. They should have gone to the NFC Championship game. How far does this selection go to putting them back into that conversation again in 24?
I mean, I think it helps. How much does a guard really push the needle? I mean, we could debate that for days, but I think, welcome to Green Bay. Jordan Morgan, you're going to be the automatic week one starting right guard. With free agency departures this offseason, I think the two biggest needs that the Packers, outside of corner, which I think this selection either tells us the Packers feel pretty good about the corners that are left out there, how they could possibly address that position in the second round, or Jair or Eric Stokes coming back, things like that. But for this selection, just in general, I think Morgan, again, he's going to be their week one starting right guard. And I like this selection because what we see with quarterbacks, you struggle with interior pressure. You're going to have to take care of the interior. It might not be as sexy as taking a tackle or a corner at this spot, but still, it fills a need.
It does indeed. So coming up next here after the Green Bay Packers selection, on the clock is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Thor Nystrom, when we're looking at Tampa, we mentioned that DeJean's still on the board, Nate Wiggins still on the board if they want to go corner. Some other potential pieces here. I believe Newton's still out there too, one of your favorite guys you had as the 22nd overall player. So what do you think Tampa does here at the next selection?
Yeah, the interior offensive line is something they need to improve in the pass rush as well. So those would be the areas that I would be looking at if I was them. I feel like, it's like in our mock, like, trying to get the guy off the board the entire time. Grahm Barton, I'll bring his name up again, would be a good fit there. And then the edge rushers as well, you could take a look at. Although, I have put the Darius Robinson kid from Missouri, a couple different exercises to hear. Because they invited him to the draft, and they only did it's a Packer pick, but they'd only invited 12 guys there, so it's like he gonna go a little bit higher. But I think that they would be looking more for the speed dude off the edge, whereas Robinson is more the versatile war daddy power guy that you can play as sort of the power edge, but you can also shift inside for passing downs. So if I was Tampa with needing, you could argue potentially multiple guys there on the interior, certainly for depth, if nothing else. That's probably where I would be looking.
Well, it looks like Grahm Barton is where they're looking from Duke. So
he should have gone 5-6 slots ago, but this is a great pick for Tampa. What a great value, especially in this paradigm that we have tonight of, again, what was it, the with the vacuum, what's it called, Joe, in Spaceballs?
And you've officially made this show go from suck to blow. So what do you
but well done. But especially in this reality where all those offensive linemen were getting plucked, above their slots, or in the aggregate were getting plucked above. Very few of those guys left here, and we're seeing them getting taken off. But Barton was the one that I think objectively goes beneath where maybe qualitatively he should have.
All right, Derek Brown, your thoughts on this selection of Barton here?
Well, now we all cross everything that we have and pray that before the end of the first round that the over 9.5 offensive linemen hit. We're trending that way. We got a lot of teams that need tackles and such at the end of the first round, but I'm very curious, and per our own NFL insider Mike Mayer says that there are a lot of teams trying to trade back into the first round. I think that's absolutely because
are we at 8 right now with the offensive?
I think we're at 8.
Okay,
yeah, my count was just 8. So we have a few more teams. I mean, we got Dallas here that could take a guy. I mean, Arizona could take
Kansas
one.
City Chiefs could certainly take one.
Like 5 teams right here could take O-line. So we
got some people sweating with their tickets right now. Two have to go in the last 6 for people out there for that thing to go over.
Well, that seems pretty reasonable there, potentially. I think when you're looking at that. Looking ahead now to the next election, the Arizona Cardinals are up next. So they did a really good job at the top getting Marvin Harrison. We've done this before where we keep looking at it, and Arizona's not usually in this position. They always have one pick at the top, but they never have that second pick in the first round where, again, somebody makes a mistake and they get somebody else. So who's the mistake that's still on the board, Thor, that could help the Cardinals get to the next level in 24?
The fortunate thing for them, it was like, their receiving core is a travesty, like we were talking about before. But, then on the other side of the ball, the rest of the offense, outside of a receiver, I would advocate they take a second one, maybe later on tomorrow or early on Saturday. But outside of that, all their other needs, the acute ones, the immediate ones for right away to prioritize were defense. So you could go BPA. You guys know the name. I'm going to say, if I was them, I would take Cooper DeJean right here, a guy who is going to boost all of your special teams units. You can plug him in on each one. He's going to improve your return game, and he is a chess piece in the defensive backfield. But then Johnny Newton as well from Illinois would step in immediately and start for them as well.
Derek Brown, we always appreciate you taking a break from guessing people's weights at the carnival in that outfit. Now that you...
They keep getting better.
Wow. Now that you have some spare time, would you like to wager in on the next selection of the NFL draft?
I gotta try to compose myself. That was a really good one.
I've got a couple picks left. I've got a few left in the chamber. I might have tonight. You never know.
I bet you do.
Have you been writing these down, or are you just stacking them?
Nope. This is the ABCs of me, baby.
I agree with Thor. I think it's Cooper DeJean should be the pick here. Johnny Newton will also make a ton of sense. If they don't go DeJean here, I gotta wipe my eyes. That one was so good. Kool-Aid McKinstry is still on the board, and we want to talk about the most battle-tested corners from the top programs across the nation. I mean, I think you can make a really good case. He could have been the clear CB2 of this entire class, and so really, it's either one of the corners or Johnny Newton for me.
This is great, though, for Arizona, because this is how you turn a team around quickly. And this franchise really needs that. You have the quarterback. You committed to the quarterback. Now you have the big-time wide receiver. If you hit these two picks out of the park, tomorrow night, D-Bro, you have another pick at 35. You're going to have 3 picks in the top 35 overall. If you do this right, the Arizona Cardinals are in a position to, again, it's 3 players, but we've seen this before where you have that one great draft, and all of a sudden you can turn things around. Thor, do you think that Arizona's in that position if they get these 2 picks right here with these next 2 that they have coming up, and they have 1 left tonight and again 1 early tomorrow?
For sure. Yeah, and the board falling well for them in terms of what their needs are, right? Like first they get the prodigy of the wide receiver, and then they have all these defensive holes. Well, that's the way the board is falling, pushing those guys down the board. So right now, whether be Cooper, whether it be Johnny Newton, whether it be Wiggins, whether it be Kool-Aid, whether it be, there's all different options. You want to stay on defense, which you can also do early on tomorrow. And then again, I would advocate they take another receiver, but that's a deep position there as well to flesh that receiving core out through at least the 3rd round.
Well, it looks like
I'm cackling here. I'm cackling because I'm looking at our YouTube comments. Somebody just called me a carnival barker. Somebody said my hero.
I already did that. I said that.
No, somebody said my hero is P.T. Barnum.
That's a good. I've got more in the chamber I've already thought of while I've been sitting here. So stay with the chat. Stay with us here live. Make sure you like the stream if you're enjoying yourself here. This is always what happens. The Cardinals are taking Darius Robinson at 27.
This is the kid. Yeah, and this is the kid we were just talking about where it raised people's eyebrows when the NFL put out their invitation list to the NFL draft. He was the one guy where it surprised people. Obviously, the NFL knew. It seems like, more of an NBA thing when we talk about like, oh, he has a promise here. But it seems like maybe Darius Robinson had a promise the NFL was aware of here at the end of the 1st round.
Derek Brown, a living, breathing Guess Who character from the beloved game. Does your character have a beard? Yes.
I feel like I should be doing the
Is he
little
wearing
character
a hat?
dance like I don't like Mortal Kombat or something, right?
Guess who? What do you think of this selection here? Is this the way you do it with Darius Robinson? Thor's comp, by the way, is Eric Armstead, the Missouri edge rusher here for Darius Robinson. Certainly, look, pass rush is huge, and certainly they need it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't list him off as far as the short list, but it's definitely still a need. You look at Arizona, and again, we go back, they need all things on defense. I mean, their defense is in shambles. They need corners, they need D tackles, they need edges. So a lot of different mocks had them going with either Chop if he fell, Darius Robinson, who got a lot of late steam and entered the process is probably on most boards as a high second round pick, but getting him into the first round, to Thor's point, I mean, they named the list of guys that, look, they wanted them there at the draft. Darius Robinson's name just definitely stuck out. So, I mean, I love to see the selection here. And yeah, it feels a need for Arizona because they just need players that can either cover or get after the quarterback.
And the other, just to hop in really quick,
Sure,
the other thing about Darius Robinson's game, some of these other dudes were the 4-3 defensive ends that you basically had to play there, or it's the 3-4 outside rushing linebacker when we're talking about the edge. Darius Robinson is an interesting case where I thought the best fit for him was in a 3-4 front as one of the 3-4 ends. That's what he finds here with Arizona. They do run hybrid stuff where they will have 4-man fronts, different kinds of looks, but it is a base 3-4. So Darius Robinson is going to start as one of your ends there. And the rest of it, you just see. But a kid who a lot of people like his game. Debro and I saw him down in Mobile, was very impressive at the Senior Bowl. And again, we had a really good idea that he was going to go in the first round based on that invitation list.
All right, now we get to have some fantasy fun because the Buffalo Bills are up next at 28. And the Buffalo Bills, we all think, are going to take a wide receiver. That's what we want them to take. We're going to manifest it, will it into existence. Derek Brown, also known as a character from a box of crackers at a dollar store in this outfit today. Can you please tell us what wide receiver you would take for the Buffalo Bills?
Oof. With the guys left off the board, I think you need a player that it's either one of two buckets, an easy separator that's going to beat zone coverage because with all the too high looks we get these days, or a guy that could become that type of X receiver that they need. I'm not going to say AD Mitchell.
Who is the X receiver? Like, I know it's not Mitchell for either of you, so I don't even want to ask it. So who is that X guy? I know Thor has been, stomping for Ladd McConkey. Is that the dude?
So Ladd McConkey, if you're talking about the easy separator and the guy that can play underneath, and we're not talking about them going with because we saw this with Kansas City last year. KC didn't go with the usual. It was just basically Mahomes, do what you do and spread the ball out. Right. We've heard Buffalo come out and say they want to move to that type of offensive diagram where it's Josh is just going to throw to whoever's open. It's not going to be force the ball to this one wide receiver. If they go with that type of playmaking diagram for their offense, then yes, it should be Ladd McConkey. If they want the X receiver, the burly guy that could be the guy that develops into being the leader of your passing attack, I'm not going AD Mitchell here. The guy that actually sticks out to me, if you're going to take the shot on just pure upside, it's probably Xavier Legette. But I'll throw another name out here for a guy that I think could fill all these different roles, and I'm curious what Thor's opinion on this. I would really like to see them also take Ricky Pearsall here. I think they could have got him. They could get him at the top of the second if they wanted to trade out of this spot. So we'll see what they do here. But depending on the board of the wide receivers, I actually would like it the most if Buffalo were to trade back and then just take whoever, because at this point, you've got a long tier of wide receivers that could fit the bill.
Thor, what do you think of those options?
McConkey for me. Yeah, I think Pearsall ends up going closer to the middle of the second round. I do on my board. I have him the last guy in the first round. I have him 32nd overall. But I think with some of these receivers on the board, but go a little bit later. With Worthy out there, you obviously have the freaky athleticism. But to me, McConkey is that dude that remains out there. I have McConkey wide receiver 4 on my board, slightly ahead of Brian Thomas. And Debro and I, we've talked about this, and I think we talked about it on one of the shows, making the connection between the Bills and Ladd McConkey, because he's a dude that just gets open all the time. Number one, the reliable guy, moving the chains, whatnot. But also, I feel like where the narrative is off on him is that's a guy that can play on the boundaries. So you're not sort of constricted there. He played 80% of his snaps on the boundary at Georgia. Two of the last 3 years they won the national title. Who they trade to?
So it looks like the Bills have traded this pick and
Ooh.
traded it. Wait for this. Traded it with the Chiefs.
Ooh.
The Chiefs.
Which is really bizarre here. I don't know why you'd be wanting.
Oh.
There's got to be an
Is
overpay.
this Xavier
Is this
Worthy?
Is this Worthy? Is this
I
where we
don't
get
know.
Worthy?
I
Please,
don't know who it is
please.
yet.
Or
but,
or Lad McConkey would be highly intriguing. Patrick Mahomes, I think, would have a lot of fun with him. Yeah, I think it's got to be one. Or the other one is Tyler Guyton. You know, when we with their needs. Yeah, like it's been wide receiver and it's been the offensive line. And Tyler Guyton, you know, I talked about this earlier. I was a little bit lower on him because there is the higher risk, but with the tackles right now, he is the top dude on the board because all the other guys are gone. And then after him, you have a drop to Kingsley Suamatea. Then after that, a bigger drop down to Patrick Paul. And then we start getting the big drops. That's why people pull people up. Who is it? Who is it?
Pick 32, 95, and 221 going the other way. And the winner is Xavier Worthy, wide receiver from Texas.
Patrick Mahomes, he wants his Tyreek Hill back. Now you got the shot there with Xavier Worthy. It's the same sort of utility, and he's going to, be running in that same sort of a thing. They obviously needed the wide receiver guy plugged into the starting lineup. This is a very good fit that will evoke Cheetah coming out there. The one thing, and Debro likes Worthy even a little bit more than me. I do like his game a lot, but the one thing that we need to see with him at the next level, improving those ball skills a little bit. Everything else is aces. Obviously broke the record for the 40 at the combine. But the thing that I think people miss about him, and Debra, I won't step on your feet too much because I know that you love this part of his game so much, but people just want to think of him as, he's just winning separation because he's athletic and whatnot. That kid can run a route as well, but he needs to improve the ball skills. Too many drops.
Yeah, Chiefs moved up and they got their guy. This was their guy, and obviously they were worried. It's just kind of odd to me that Buffalo was the team to help them out, basically. Like, it helped them. They did get higher picks. They did swap around. So Buffalo must be very content with what's on the board or the guy that they wanted, but still, to give the Kansas City Chiefs the guy they wanted when they're your main competition, it seems like in the AFC, it's a little puzzling. But regardless, that's the world we're living in. So Xavier Worthy, break it down from a fantasy standpoint. How are we going to overdraft this guy in 2024?
I'm not gonna care. Look, people talk about learning lessons in life. I should have learned a lesson with Sky Moore. I don't care. I'm gonna go right back to the well. I'm gonna drink that water, and it's not gonna be poisonous. I'm here for Xavier Worthy, man. I've talked about him this entire process. He has been and remains my wide receiver 5 of this rookie class. Thor talked about it and set it up perfectly. The conversation for him begins with the speed and when it should begin with his freaking route running, man. I put a clip out there on X. Anybody wants to go find that, look at that video. You watch Worthy and all the parts and pieces that you want out of a route runner are there. He can run short area routes. He can get deep. He can double move guys. He can run whip routes. Like, what you want as far as a route runner, Xavier Worthy can do all of that. And, look at this. He can also take the freaking top off a defense. So, yes, we have Marquise Hollywood Brown there. Guess what? Now he gets to go play the new MVS role, and he can run clear outs all day. And we get to watch Rashee Rice work underneath whenever he comes back from whatever possible suspension, and Xavier Worthy cook. So I'm here for it, man. Like, to me, the biggest fallout of all of this is, now do we see Patrick Mahomes return to that high-end QB1 that we all came to love in previous years in fantasy? And we get the first Joey.
Wow.
I thought it was going to be me. He had to put himself on mute because he was...
The over definitely got there. So
I did.
It was the over.
We bet the line.
I did for a moment there. What makes you think
I was on the
talking to
under,
you?
Joe. So
Maybe I was having a conversation with somebody else.
It's a tough sim.
Listen, just because you were the last guy left over at the final Thanksgiving with the Pilgrims, bro, don't think that you all of a sudden run this stream. Okay, buddy?
It never runs out.
Yeah. By the way, are you late for your magician role at the small children's party?
I really wish I knew magic tricks right now. Oh man,
yeah,
I wish I did. But
this might be what I would like to say now that my microphone is back on is I know it's a difficult question to answer. It might even be impossible, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The uncertainty with Rashee Rice. If Rice is, let's put Rice there. Let's say the legal issues get taken care of. Maybe he gets a 2-game suspension or something like that. Let's say it's on the lower end of what happened there. Again, this is just sheer speculation. How important is Rice being present along with a healthy Travis Kelce for Worthy to be really at the peak of his potential fantasy in that first year?
I think they're honestly going to work interchangeably. And I think when you're looking at the usage of both of them, Xavier Worthy can work in the short and intermediate areas of the field just like Rashee Rice, but Rashee Rice doesn't have the ability to take the top off of defense like Worthy can. So if anything, this is a pretty big ding to Rashee Rice. So
okay,
I've been very high on Rashee Rice, and I believe in the talent now. Now Thor knows as well as anybody else that was rode along with us for Senior Bowl coverage last year. I was lower on Rashee Rice, but I came around during the season because look, when new information presents itself, we have to dig in and we have to dive in. And
right, and I was somebody conversely who was very high on Rashee Rice.
Yes,
I drafted him everywhere late, and we talk even in the flex league.
You dropped him in flex league.
Well, I had no choice because I had so many injuries. I had to get somebody who was actually playing at the time. But there was a guy. Look, it wasn't the only league I drafted him in. I had a lot of shares, but
it's fair.
Let's say that he is not available for the Chiefs. What then becomes the expanded role for Xavier Worthy? Because I think that becomes really interesting too.
You're talking about a guy that could be a top 24 wide receiver. I mean, we're talking about Holmes, and then he's competing with Travis Kelce, which Travis Kelce didn't look like full 100% prime Travis Kelce for most of the season until we got to the playoffs. He could be a top 24 wide receiver in his rookie season if that happens.
All right, we're up to the next pick here, and it is the Dallas Cowboys, and the pick is in here, and it's Tyler Guyton at 29. Thor Nystrom, break it down for us.
Yeah, the last talk off the board that a lot of people felt good about as a first round pick. They're assuming some more risk here, but if Guyton and it's not like hitting, he just needs to be more consistent. He's a very weird player to watch because he has all the athletic traits, moves around well, the length, like everything that you would want, and he has dominant stretches and dominant games against NFL players. But then he'll have other games where he's getting licked by a guy who is not he's not going to get drafted, right? And maybe won't even get a priority UDFA deal. And he'll lose reps in embarrassing fashion to guys like that. The consistency needs to improve. It's not even a technique thing because he knows the technique. I don't know if it's a locking in thing with him. But that's my supposition. But yeah, some of those things need to be polished off of his game. But then also he needs to. I don't know another way to put it, but Guyton needs to be more engaged. Play out, series to series, and every single week. That stuff is that flew in Norman, Oklahoma. It ain't gonna fly in the NFL. Kid, you'll be sitting on the bench if you give that vacillating effort. So that's he needs to work on that, and then the coaching staff will in kind go to work on some of the other parts of his game where they just need a little bit more polish.
T-Bro, do the Cowboys have that luxury of a player that you have to potentially have all those issues with? I mean, this is a team that's already kind of teetering on the brink. This feels like a terrible set of circumstances from the way Thor describes it to the environment in which he's going, where there's no room for error. And I have doubts that coaching staff can get him where he needs to be.
I mean, it's definitely a riskier pick. Looking at with the needs of their offensive line, I actually kind of thought they were going to go with a guy they could put at guard, because looking at where their needs have been. I mean, losing Tyron Smith, that made a big difference, but also where they're shifting guys around, I thought they probably should have traded back and gone center or go another position here. So I don't hate the Guyton pick outside of the fact that at betting pros, I did bet the over 29.5 at plus money. So it's close. We just needed one more pick, Joe.
One more pick. That's all we needed. Just one more. Just one more rib. All right, let's continue on here with the NFL draft, because obviously the pick is in here for the Dallas Cowboys. and it does seem to be Tyler Guyton. So that'll bring us to pick number 30 here. And pick number 30, we are looking at the Baltimore Ravens, the kings of constantly making the most of the board. So, Thor, if you are the Baltimore Ravens and this is what you do best, what is the pick to continue this trend of Baltimore making the rest of the league very frustrated by taking the best talent on the board and automatically making it valuable on their roster?
Yeah, you mentioned like the BPA type ethos. I think offensive line, but that we got the problem with the guys getting pulled up. Are they one of the teams that likes Kingsley Suamatea, a very polarizing offensive tackle prospect from BYU, the cousin of Penei Sewell, and a kid who was a stud recruit like earlier on. And he has shown flashes, but another dude who is super inconsistent, and another guy that needs to play more engaged and then needs to have some rough spots in his game polish up. But he has the ceiling. We have very few guys left at that position that do. So that would be one that I would toss out for Baltimore. As far as interior guys, I don't know if there would be a guy here that like I could advocate for from a quality perspective that would be like, yeah, I mean, like, Pooney, BB, Haynes, I like those guys, but I like those guys mid to late second. So we're too early on that. And I wouldn't take the only other guy I think you considered their first round, at least for me, would be Jackson Powers Johnson. I've had this supposition he's going to get pushed out of the first, but maybe they can save him. But yeah, that would be if you decide to go with the offensive line with this one position that's been picked apart at this point.
Debro, if you were GM of the Baltimore Ravens, where would you go?
I would trade back. That's exactly what I was doing. I'm sitting here as Thor's going through the board. I'm looking at Baltimore's needs and all the BPA and all the guys left on the board. It's like, could you make a case that, look, Baltimore needs to could go corner here? Sure. Is that really like where they need to go considering the state of their offensive line? I highly doubt it. I mean, they still have Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens. And now I know Brandon Stevens is an unrestricted free agent after this season, so you can make the case for corner. But to be honest, if I'm Baltimore, I want to trade back. I want to trade back, and you take one of these guys, you get more equity, and so because they have multiple needs on the offensive line, they not only need a tackle, they need a guard, and they need to rebuild like half of their offensive line. So looking at that type of situation, if I'm Baltimore, I'm trading out of this pick.
I think I would. Let's see.
Go ahead,
It says pick is in. I don't know if they're going to submit it, but if I was them right now, like I wouldn't take the offensive. I would take McConkey, right? Like I know they took the receiver in the first round last year, but I would take McConkey, and McConkey has a pre-existing relationship with the guy that calls plays. That helps as well, and they have a starting slot open where he could step in and play right away.
Well, look, if you are looking at this right now as the Baltimore Ravens, yeah, you did take a receiver last year, but he's got a few off, the field issues he's got to take care of right now. They're still thin at wide receiver regardless because Bateman has been a bust and Odell is gone. And, at this point, I think you are probably better off right now if you're the Ravens, probably making this pick and not trading if wide receiver is what you're looking for. I'm trying to think of what other teams might be interested in trading back into this because – you're looking ahead here at round 2, and you've got Carolina, New England, Arizona, Washington as the first few picks. I don't know if there's anybody that really they want to leapfrog in. But, Derek, we also tonight haven't had any players getting traded. That's something we see sometimes more on night 2 of the draft. Mm-hmm. No Brandon Ayuk trade yet. No trade right now for T. Higgins. Do you think tomorrow we might see one or both of those moves?
I think we could see both. I would like to say that I'm surprised that neither one of these wide receivers has moved to this point. But again, it's funny because Thor and I were talking about this earlier, just prepping for the draft and like what kind of value you're putting on either one of those guys in a trade. And both of them, you're going to have to pay. So as well as you kind of factor in some of the injuries, the health and stuff with T. Higgins over the last few years, that also factors in. So I could see both of them getting moved for second-round picks, considering the contracts that both of them are going to need to lock them up in their new destination. So just because we haven't seen them move yet doesn't mean that we don't see them move tomorrow.
The pick is in. Baltimore stayed put. and it is a corner, but it's Nate Wiggins. That's the corner that goes off the board here
They-
for the Baltimore Ravens. The Clemson corner, that was the fourth corner off your board. Thor, go ahead, take it away.
They just showed the and I would have to see, but I was squinting to make sure. They just showed the shot of the Ravens war room. It appeared as though their draft board was on the walls, unless my eyesight is, I just like looked at, like it was like the rounds and the names under them. I'm sure we're going to be seeing on Twitter if that's actually the case.
That'll be zoomed in. Somebody's going to clip that.
I am a little bleary eyed right now, so maybe the chicken scratch on the wall, but that's sure what it looked like to me. So that was kind of interesting. We're getting the pick right now from Goodell. Oh, yeah, Wiggins. Yes, you gave it to us.
Cornerback of Clemson. I did.
Yeah.
It's late in the evening, Thor. You've been doing this for about 5 hours now, you and me. So
well, yeah, and I with that big board on the wall, as you know, I'm like, well, what's round is that?
I know you love the
like the whole.
It's a big board.
If that's what it is, I mean, that's their whole game plan for the rest of the
weekend. What else would it be? I don't know. Is it their DoorDash order for the whole staff?
Bro, can you look that up on Twitter and see if anyone is like what that was?
I'm sure.
Yeah, but yeah, the for me there, I think Ladd McConkey would have been interesting, both because of that starting lineup job that was open, but also because Todd Monken is their offensive coordinator. He spent time with Ladd McConkey beginning of his career, the end of Monken's time at Georgia, before he went back to the NFL, took over the Ravens offense. But Nate Wiggins, burner. The speed is ridiculous with him. Favorite play from him in college that everyone brings up, it was when he chased down Omarion Hampton of UNC from behind. Just roared back. He was 20 yards behind the kid, and he catches the speed's crazy, but the frame is the thing that we're concerned about. We're not concerned about, but that was the thing that just dinged him a little bit. On the skinnier side, lacks the play strength, but speed all day, make up speed all day. And he's got some cover skills as well.
There are multiple people on the old X app right now talking about how the Ravens big board just got a big screenshot on ESPN. So that's sometimes.
So it was their big board.
Yeah, I mean, there are people talking about it. I don't have confirmation. Okay. But there are people that have also seen the same thing you saw, Thor.
Yeah, that's sure what it looked like.
It's not good. It's not good.
Although it would be very clever if you did a dummy big board, because you knew the TV shot was coming.
The 4D chess here? Are we really?
Yes. Why has a team never done this before? It's like, our game plan for Friday, it's whatever. And these are the guys they're not the guys you're prioritizing. Now we're inside your head.
Well, now we're inside the final two picks, which is the San Francisco 49ers, followed by now the Buffalo Bills, who had swapped around with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to take you through those last two picks. So, D-Bro, any guesses to where San Francisco will go next with this pick?
It should be offensive line, but considering where we're at with the offensive line position, I think one guy makes a lot of sense, and I know his stock has been dropping. Jackson Powers-Johnson makes a lot of sense here, only because they do have a need at center. You're looking along the line for the 49ers. The two needs they have are a glaring need at center and a glaring need at right tackle. Right tackle is not a spot where you want to reach and try to fill a guy. Like, okay, second, third round, you probably can get a guy that can play right tackle and start week one. But for me, if I'm San Francisco, go get Jackson Powers-Johnson. He's built like SpongeBob, but he is nasty. He's not nice when you get in the trenches.
Thor, what do you think about that? Or do you think maybe another selection you have in mind for San Francisco?
I totally agree with that. Offensive line obviously is by far the biggest area of need for San Francisco. And so Jackson Powers-Johnson's 31st on my board. And by the way, not only has proven in the past that the years before last was at guard, was a really good one in the Pac-12. Last year proved he could be a really good center as well. He's even played some tackle in the past. So you know that he could. I mean, in the NFL, you probably wouldn't want him to because he's only 6'3" and a quarter, 326. But certainly the three positions along the interior, he could start at any of those. In fact, I might even advocate that he get kicked back to guard. He might be better at guard in the NFL, but certainly his team could decide upon that. He would be starting next year. I think the only other thing, if this one is not outside but Coop, I have to bring up Coop again. It's and San Francisco is a guy that could potentially use that guy as well as far as a positional need. you could just stick him in the slot tomorrow, and he's going to be your nickel dude going forward.
I see the draft board of the Baltimore Ravens here. Now, I've zoomed in as much as I can, and my eyes aren't. It's definitely the draft board, and it's a lot of names, but it looks like Sanskrit, basically. I can't make anything out, although I'm sure somebody with high technology can figure something out here to...
I won't be going to sleep tonight till I decipher every single one. Twitter, get ready for it tomorrow. I will have their second round, their third round, the whole gameplay. And I hope it's a dummy one. If they went dummy because they knew the TV screen was coming in, that would be all-time.
Well, it doesn't look like it because there's some other ones here now, too. Some other angles of it that are a little bit easier to read.
Yeah,
So,
that's...
bad job there. The pick is in for the 49ers. We'll let you know what it is as soon as we have it here. So hopefully we'll get it soon. It is a wide receiver. It is one of your favorites, Derek Brown. It is Ricky Pearsall.
Oh, he did! Wow!
Pearsall the first round. Wow. So is that the end of the Brandon Ayuk era, lock, stock, and barrel?
Love it.
It's this. Ooh, I'm speechless. Like, Thor and I have loved Ricky Pearsall through this entire process. He got a chance to talk to him in Mobile, which Thor, please tweet that clip out tonight. Ricky P, I mean, he interviewed fantastically. He played really well in Mobile. I was not the biggest supporter on him until I went back to the film the second time, and I put massive respect on his name. I mean, you look at all the counting stats coming out of Florida, none of them do him justice. He can get open, short, intermediate, and deep. He is a contested my ball catch specialist. If you want to watch one catch out of him, go look. You're on YouTube, go just search Ricky Pearsall Charlotte, and you will see the nastiest catch that you have possibly ever seen in your life that defies the laws of physics and gravity. I'm over the moon. This is lovely. Yes. So we were talking about Brandon Ayuk getting moved tomorrow. All right, let's go. Him or Debo. Bye-bye. Gone. You gone.
Or you compared him to a more athletic, I believe, version of Adam Thielen, which pretty good comp because Adam Thielen was a guy who was incredibly productive for the Minnesota Vikings for quite some time. Again, a UDFA, but still a guy that had a very good NFL career. We could all agree on that. So if Ricky Pearsall is that, and the 49ers got themselves a good one.
Yeah, I was waiting until you were done talking to give D-Bro his flowers, but he couldn't. He had to preempt it. So I just
look, he's one of the best fantasy analysts out there, and he will be the first one to tell you that. But he is.
Well played, guys.
Well played. Yeah, I was talking before about the JJ McCarthy one where D-Bro and I, we independently came to the same comp. This would be an example of one where I outright just pilfered it from D-Bro. When he said this one, I was like, oh, shut it down on the Pearsall comp front. That is the one, being Adam Thielen. Both the route running that Adam Thielen had, the reason that he was able to overcome his circumstance. Of course, Ricky Pearsall, you don't need to overcome nothing. He's a first round pick going to a Super Bowl contender. But the route running, the hands are dumb. The Charlotte catch is the one everyone needs to look up. But you see the whole highlight reel. He makes they're showing it right now on ESPN. He makes the dumbest catches ever, but it's not just a circus act. The reliability, he doesn't drop anything. He doesn't flub balls. And then he tested like a banshee at Indianapolis. That was the one part of his pre-draft process that was surprising. We weren't surprised that he impressed us in Mobile. Last 3 years, he has been the wide receiver one for in procession. 2021, Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. Then he goes to Florida, 2022, Anthony Richardson. Last year, Graham Mertz. But and then he plays well. Obviously, he has the polish to his game in Mobile. But he goes to Indianapolis at the NFL Combine and tested crazy. Even for a Ricky Pearsall fan like myself, I did not anticipate that he would have a 99th percentile athletic composite doing all the tests. I knew he was a solid athlete. I did not know that he was that tier of one. But you have everything with him and the efficiency and everything like that. The last thing I'll say, it'll be interesting to watch on this. I thought that he could play either or interchangeably go shift between the boundary and the slot. He did tell us early on down at the Senior Bowl that the NFL at that point had mostly talked to him about playing the slot at the next level. But we were only halfway through the event at that point, which he did very well again. And then he had not athletically tested yet. I wonder if the NFL will view that a little bit differently. You can't play him on the line because he'll get pressed, but as the number 2 guy, especially if you're shifting him around, you don't necessarily, in my opinion, have to stick him in the slot. You just have to make sure he gets his free release off the line.
2 things. Buffalo's at it again. Another trade. Looks like Carolina is trading here. I gotta wrap my head around this one of what's going on here. So it looks like Carolina is moving here to pick number 32. And if we have this correctly, they're just swapping here with Buffalo.
Is this the McConkey pick right here? This would be perfect for Carolina.
I don't know, but it certainly could be. Buffalo also trades pick 32, 200 for Carolina's 33 and 141. Also, it looks like the Panthers are selecting Xavier Legette. That is the selection.
Oh, the Panthers are?
The Panthers are.
Wow, local kid.
So that's how we're closing out night
keeping
1.
Him home.
So...
And by the way, good for Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette, the 4 years before this past season, was a special teamer. He couldn't break through early on. And there's things about his past and the circumstances that explain some of this stuff away. But those 4 years, he was the special teams guy. He was like the I'll clean up the stadium after everyone leaves. Like, in this day and age, everybody transfers when they can't get on the field for 4 years, especially if you're an athletic freak like Xavier Legette is. Instead, he turned himself into an awesome special teams player, an awesome practice player. When he got his shot, his last season of collegiate eligibility, for him, the sky's open. It was like the Red Sea because all the other South Carolina impact skill guys, they all left. So it was Spencer Rattler to Xavier Legette and then pray for rain. They didn't have anything else, including an offensive line. Good for Xavier Legette and good for the Panthers moving up to take the local kid, keep him home. I think the developmental arrow on that kid is still pointing up.
Interesting comp you have. David Boston. Now I'm old enough to remember that guy.
Blast from the past.
That was a blast from the past when I saw that one. A guy that you could say never lived up to his physical potential. I think that's fair. But in your opinion, Derek Brown, was this a wise move for Carolina to make this move? They couldn't wait one more pick to make this selection. Seems a little weird to me unless they've got some other things cooking in the pot. But regardless, Xavier Legette is on his way to Carolina.
I mean, I like the selection because the other thing about it is who else was sniffing around trying to go for wide receiver. They had to believe that the market for Legette was heating up. Carolina, we know they needed a wide receiver. Jonathan Mingo, the selection that everybody wanted to jump on the train last year, was never the guy. He was never going to be the guy. And now, effectively, with the new coaching staff, he's been buried. I mean, they brought in Deontay Johnson. They still have Adam Thielen there. Legette can be the guy that, looking at just the composition of that wide receiver room, he doesn't have to be the X. They could play him at Z. They could play him in a myriad of different roles right there where he doesn't have to be just the X in that offense, but can he develop and be that guy? It's definitely possible. And I like the selection here for Legette. I mean, looking at the other guys, we just talked about it, like who fits that archetype of the outside possible X receiver in an offense. And that list is really slim to begin with at this point in the draft. And it was just getting even slimmer. I will toss this in here, Joey. We just had the absolute worst run out ever for hitting the over 9.5 offensive lineman. It went under. Yeah. We have 9.
Crazy
9. So if you had the ticket, you got it at plus money. We were riding, baby. We had 5 or 6 slots left.
And a lot of wide receivers here towards the end of the night, too. And none of them were AD Mitchell, as Thor was telling us all along. He shouldn't have been a first round guy.
Cash some tickets there.
Cash some tickets there. So that did not happen. Let's talk about the guys remaining. Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, 2 big corners still on the board.
Yeah, so still 5 guys heading into tomorrow that have first-round grades on my board. Cooper DeJean tops that list. The medicals with him, very important. He had the dominant career, but tore up his knee in November last season. So again, black box with the medicals. What's the progress? He was able to test at the very end, not the first the pro day with his teammates, but he had his own private work, or not private because we all knew what the results are, but personal pro day, I suppose is what you call it, and tested well. So well, in fact, that he had a 98th percentile RAS. He skipped a couple of them, but it's still pretty good. So you would put at the top of the list. Johnny Newton, number 2. Talked about them. Ladd McConkey. I thought that Xavier Legette pick could be Ladd McConkey. the Buffalo Bills kick us off tomorrow night. That could be Lab McConkey. We talked about them when they were on the clock before. Then Kool-Aid McKinstry, the Alabama cornerback. And then the last guy with the first round, Jackson Powers Johnson, who I had that feeling because of the way that the tide was shifting. He is the one offensive lineman who got pushed out of the parade and the party of the offensive line group today. And that was the difference, the razor's edge between 9 and 10. On VSIN earlier this week, they asked me about that one. I said that is the best line on the board. Every time I do the mock draft, it either ends with 9 or 10 offensive linemen. So it just depends on that. Obviously, Jackson Powers Johnson gets pushed out, but he should be one of the top ones. A couple other names really quick, Joe, that I'll toss out. Marshawn Nealon from Western Michigan tomorrow is not going to have to wait long to hear his name called. An edge rusher with a power element to his game. Dominant in the MAC, but people question the level of competition because the MAC has fallen off so much. But Marshawn Nealon went in 91st percentile athletic composite, and I think that's going to get him to the top of tomorrow. Two other ones for you. Enos Ray Stroud Jr. From Missouri, the teammate of Darius Robinson. I think he is going to go off the board very quickly tomorrow. There's only speed concerns with him, but I would just shift him into the slot. You get him closer to the ball. I love watching that kid fly downhill and hit running backs. I don't want to evoke Devin Witherspoon because in the 5 years I've been doing this, I haven't seen someone that gleeful at cornerback, just like, yeah, I'm going to go and hit someone. But like, it's so rare that when you see it, like it puts a smile on your face. Ray Straw is one of those guys that wants to fly down and hit people. I would just put him in nickel. I think it plays up the run defense even more, mitigates the speed concerns and the frame concerns as well, because he's only 183 pounds. Last one, Mike Sanderstell from Michigan is going to be a stud nickel defender in the NFL for a long, long time.
Interesting too, guys, because the Buffalo Bills have gone back not once but twice now. So they're kind of changing their draft capital structure here as we look to the next few days ahead. That's something to keep an eye on, how they utilize that. Do they cash some of that in tomorrow and double up on wide receiver or do something else? It's going to be really interesting to see what the Buffalo Bills do in night 2 especially. Derek Brown, as we close the book on night 1, who is the big winner for you in terms of what you saw tonight in round 1 of the NFL draft?
Oh, good Lord.
It's hard not to say the Minnesota.
I was going to say the Minnesota.
Excuse me. Sorry. It's been a long night.
I hear you. It's the Vikings. There you go, Thor. Vikings are 1, and unfortunately, God, I hate to even say this because they're both going to be insufferable now. But it's the Vikings and the Eagles. Getting Quinon Mitchell where they got him is absolute insanity. And
I like the Cardinals, D. I gotta say, the Cardinals.
No, I like what the Cardinals did, but
I do believe exactly what they were supposed to do. Take the best guys they could, and they did that.
Agreed.
If we want to talk about the biggest winner, I do believe that Kwesi just cooked it, man. Like,
he did.
You needed to come out of the first round with a quarterback and either a corner or an edge. And the fact that Minnesota was able to do this, not sacrifice their next year's first round pick, and get these guys where they got them. Yeah, the Vikings get the top grade for the first round.
All right, Thor, besides the Vikings, who's your big winner tonight?
I do like what the Cardinals did, and they're set up well tomorrow with the equity. So I would toss them out. The other one, I feel like have to shout them out, and they got a cheat code on this because they had 2 top 9 picks, but I think they ended up doing the right thing with them. The Chicago Bears, grabbing Odunze. You know, we talked about the decision there where it was like Odunze against some of the defensive stuff, or they could have gone with one of the offensive line guys. They could have led the dance on that because that was when the frenzy sort of started with that. I like giving him Caleb Williams. I like adding Odunze to that. They have a ridiculous receiver. You guys remember the absolute barren wasteland they had a wide receiver a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Like a couple years ago, they made the Patriots.
It was Allen Robinson who was dust, and Darnell Mooney, and some other guys too.
No, they made like the Vikings, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Jake Reed receiving cards look like, like it was horrible, right? Like, and now you have done put the piece around Caleb Williams that are going to facilitate the quick start. So right. I definitely have to shout them out as well.
There you go. So join us tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on the channel. We'll be back to do it all again. All my rowdy friends will be here, and who knows what outfit Derek Brown will be wearing tomorrow. We can only tune in.
I might not be alone.
Well, we shall find out. Again, the only way to do that is to subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Again, don't forget to click that bell, ring that bad boy till it goes ding for notifications, and join us tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, live right here for nights 2 of the NFL draft and rounds 2 and 3. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on for all of our incredible team here at Fantasy Pros in front of and behind the camera. Want to thank all of them for their work today. I'm Joey P. We'll see you tomorrow, kids, for more NFL Draft.